The U.S. president is furious. Donald Trump has lobbed a fresh threat at Canada, saying he will block the new Gordie Howe Bridge between Windsor and Detroit unless Canada fully compensates America. But here is the truth that changes everything. Canada already paid for the whole bridge. The cameras never show you the silence before something big happens. They don't capture the stillness that settles over steel and concrete when a project is finished, but not yet alive. Right now, on the edge of Detroit and Windsor, that silence is deafening. A finished $6.4 billion bridge stretches across the water like a statement no one wants to say out loud. It is built, complete, and waiting. And the most powerful man in the United States is not the one deciding when it opens. That alone tells you something huge has shifted. For years, Americans have been told a simple story about borders. Control runs through Washington. Major infrastructure, especially something connecting two countries, only moves when the United States says it moves. But now there is a bridge that breaks that pattern. Quietly, almost uncomfortably so. Here is the truth most headlines are dancing around. Canada paid for it. All of it. Every beam, every cable, every inch of roadway. Over $6.4 billion funded entirely by Canada. Not a single U.S. taxpayer dollar, not one. And now, as the final systems are being tested, traffic control, tolling, lighting, something else is happening behind the scenes. Quiet conversations. Not about whether the bridge works or whether it is ready, but about timing, about optics, about avoiding a reaction. Because in Washington, a reaction has become its own kind of power. Reports have surfaced that officials on both sides of the border are deliberately keeping the opening date under wraps. Not because they don't know when it will be ready, but because they do. And they are choosing the moment carefully, strategically, even cautiously. Why? Because earlier this year, Donald Trump made it clear he sees this bridge differently. Not as a shared economic lifeline. Not as a long overdue upgrade to North America's busiest trade corridor. But as leverage. He threatened to block its opening unless the United States was fully compensated for what he claims America has given Canada. That's where the story stops making sense. There was no American contribution to compensate for. The math is simple, and it doesn't bend. Canada built it. Canada financed it. Canada assumed the risk. Under the agreement, Canada collects the tolls until the cost is recovered. Only after that do revenues get shared. So what exactly is there to demand? That question is echoing through boardrooms, trade offices, and political circles on both sides of the border. And it is why the situation has quietly escalated from an infrastructure story into something far more consequential. Because this isn't just about a bridge anymore. It's about who decides. Every day, thousands of trucks move between Detroit and Windsor. Auto parts, machinery, components that cross the border multiple times before a single vehicle rolls off an assembly line. Ford, GM, Stellantis. Their supply chains depend on speed and predictability. Minutes matter. Delays cost millions. Right now, those delays are real. The existing Ambassador Bridge is privately owned, aging, and overwhelmed. It can't keep up. Trucks are being rerouted miles out of the way, burning fuel, wasting hours, driving up costs that ripple through the entire system. And every week, this new bridge stays closed. Millions in lost revenue. Not theoretical losses. Real money, real inefficiencies, real pressure building beneath the surface of North America's manufacturing backbone. The private sector is ready. Thousands of transponders have already been ordered. Logistics companies are lined up. Systems are being tested. The green light could come at any moment, but it hasn't. And that's where the tension tightens. Publicly, the explanation is technical. Final adjustments, system calibrations, commissioning processes. The kind of language that sounds reasonable until you look closer. Until you realize that behind those explanations is a political calculation unfolding in real time. Officials aren't just asking if the bridge is ready. They're asking, what happens when it opens? What happens if Trump reacts? What happens if he turns it into a confrontation? What happens if a ribbon cutting becomes a flashpoint in an already strained relationship? So they wait. They talk quietly. And they try not to trigger something bigger than the bridge itself. But then something unexpected happens. A leak. Suddenly the silence breaks. The quiet strategy becomes public knowledge, the careful timing gets exposed, and with it, the entire dynamic shifts. Because once the story is out, the leverage changes hands. It's one thing to quietly pressure behind closed doors. It's another to do it under a spotlight. Once Americans hear that a fully Canadian-funded project is being held up, not by engineering, not by safety, but by political tension, the narrative changes. Now it's not about strength, it's about perception. Blocking or delaying a bridge the U.S. didn't pay for starts to look less like negotiation and more like interference, less like leadership and more like overreach. And that is a dangerous place for any administration to be, because perception, especially in politics, can collapse leverage faster than any negotiation ever could. And Canada knows it. This is where the story becomes strategic. For months, Ottawa stayed quiet. No announcements, no firm dates, just steady progress behind the scenes. But the moment that silence breaks, intentionally or not, the entire equation flips. Now opening the bridge isn't just an operational decision, it's a statement, a signal that Canada can move forward on its own timeline, that it doesn't need a green light from Washington to activate infrastructure it paid for, built, and controls. And if that signal holds, the implications go far beyond a single crossing, because this bridge is a test case. If Canada can open it without U.S. approval, what comes next? Ports, pipelines, critical mineral routes, Arctic infrastructure, defense partnerships. Every future project that once defaulted to U.S. influence suddenly looks different, because the precedent changes. And precedents are powerful. They don't just shape one decision. They reshape expectations. They redraw boundaries that were never officially written down, but always understood. Until now. For Prime Minister Mark Carney, the calculus is clear. Move first, deal with the reaction later. Secure the outcome before the negotiation begins. It's a different approach. One that doesn't ask permission. It creates reality, then forces everyone else to respond to it. And so far, it's working. Because here we are, with a finished bridge, a waiting industry, and a ticking clock. And the United States isn't in control of when it opens. That alone would have been unthinkable a decade ago. But today, it's real. And for American viewers, that raises a harder question. What does it mean when a critical piece of North American infrastructure moves forward without Washington's say? What does it mean when economic arteries, routes that directly impact U.S. jobs, supply chains, and industries, can be activated on someone else's terms? Because make no mistake, this bridge will change things. It will speed up trade, reduce congestion, lower costs, strengthen supply chains. American businesses will benefit from it every single day. But the control over it? That's not American. And that contrast is where the tension lives. Because influence isn't just about who benefits, it's about who decides. And in this case, that decision is slipping out of Washington's hands. The trucks are ready. The systems are nearly complete. The investment is already made. All that's left is a moment, a date, a quiet announcement, or a sudden one. And when it happens, it won't just mark the opening of a bridge. It will mark a shift. A subtle one, maybe. Not loud, not explosive, but undeniable. Because once that first truck crosses, the message becomes real. Canada built it. Canada opened it. And the United States had to watch it happen. Not because it didn't matter, but because this time, it didn't get to decide.